I was sitting at the head table, surrounded by my loved ones, when the medical bill collector appeared. I was taken aback, wondering what this person was doing at my birthday party. The room fell silent as I stared at the $20,000 bill in my hand. I couldn't believe that my birthday celebration had been ruined by a medical debt collector. I had been dealing with some health issues over the past year, and I had been seeing a specialist for treatment. I had assumed that my insurance was covering most of the costs, but apparently, there was a mistake with the billing. The medical bill collector explained that the bill was for a series of treatments that I had received, and that I needed to pay it immediately. I was shocked and distressed by the news. I had never received a bill for that amount before, and I had no idea how I was going to pay it. I felt like my world had been turned upside down. I couldn't believe that my birthday celebration had been ruined by a medical debt collector. As the partygoers began to disperse, I decided to take matters into my own hands and fight against the medical billing company. I knew that I had to act fast, or else the bill would continue to accumulate interest and late fees. I started by making phone calls to the billing company, trying to get to the bottom of the mistake. But every time I spoke to someone, I got a different answer. Some people told me that the bill was correct, while others said that it was an error. I was getting frustrated and anxious, feeling like I was getting nowhere. I decided to seek the help of a patient advocate, someone who could help me navigate the complex world of medical billing. As I sat in the advocate's office, poring over my medical records and bills, I began to realize the extent of the mistake. The billing company had made a series of errors, overcharging me for treatments that I had never received. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, knowing that I was not responsible for the full amount. But little did I know, this was only the beginning of a long and arduous journey. I would have to fight tooth and nail to get the billing company to correct their mistake and reduce the bill. I would have to deal with phone calls, emails, and letters, all while trying to keep my sanity intact. I was determined to see this through, no matter what it took. I was going to fight for my rights as a patient, and I was going to make sure that the billing company did not get away with their mistake. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle ahead. It was time to take on the medical billing company and fight for justice. As I sat in the advocate's office, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I was going to fight for my rights as a patient, and I was going to make sure that the billing company did not get away with their mistake. The advocate, a kind and knowledgeable woman named Sarah, nodded in agreement as I expressed my determination. "I'm with you all the way," she said. "We'll get to the bottom of this and make sure that the billing company corrects their mistake." Together, we pored over my medical records and bills, highlighting the errors and discrepancies. Sarah explained that the billing company had a history of making mistakes like this, and that it was not uncommon for them to overcharge patients. "But that's no excuse," she said. "We'll fight to get your bill reduced and make sure that you're not responsible for the full amount." As we worked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anxiety. What if the billing company refused to correct their mistake? What if they continued to harass me for payment? I pushed the thoughts aside and focused on the task at hand, but the tension was building inside me. Over the next few days, Sarah and I worked tirelessly to gather evidence and build a case against the billing company. We sent letters and emails, made phone calls, and even filed a complaint with the state medical board. But despite our best efforts, the billing company refused to budge. They continued to send me letters and calls, demanding payment for the full amount. They even threatened to send my account to a collections agency, which would damage my credit score and cause even more financial stress. I felt like I was being bullied, and the stress was taking a toll on my health. I couldn't sleep at night, and I was constantly on edge, waiting for the next phone call or letter from the billing company. Sarah tried to reassure me, but even she seemed frustrated by the billing company's refusal to cooperate. "This is ridiculous," she said. "We have clear evidence of their mistake, and yet they're still refusing to correct it." I nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of anger and frustration. Why was this so hard? Why couldn't the billing company just admit their mistake and fix it? As the days turned into weeks, the tension continued to build. I felt like I was in a war with the billing company, and I was starting to lose hope. But Sarah refused to give up. She kept pushing, kept fighting, and eventually, we got a breakthrough. The billing company agreed to review my case again, and this time, they admitted that they had made a mistake. They offered to reduce my bill by half, which was a significant victory. But it wasn't enough. I still felt like I was being taken advantage of, and I was determined to see this through to the end. I want to see the records, I said, my voice firm. I want to know exactly how they calculated my bill, and I want to see the evidence of their mistake. Sarah nodded in agreement. Let's do it, she said. And so, we began the process of reviewing the billing company's records, line by line. It was a tedious and time-consuming process, but I was determined to get to the bottom of it. As we dug deeper, we discovered even more discrepancies and errors. The billing company had made mistake after mistake, and it was clear that they had been trying to cover it up. I felt a sense of outrage and anger. How could they do this to me? How could they take advantage of me like this? But I pushed the emotions aside and focused on the task at hand. I was determined to see this through, no matter what it took. And so, we continued to dig, continued to fight, and continued to push for justice. The outcome was far from certain, but one thing was clear: I would not back down. As we continued to review the billing company's records, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The more we dug, the more discrepancies we found. It was like they had been trying to hide something, and I was determined to uncover the truth. Sarah and I spent hours poring over the records, highlighting errors and making notes. We were a team, working together to uncover the truth and bring the billing company to justice. But as the days turned into weeks, the tension began to build. The billing company was getting more and more agitated, and their letters and phone calls were becoming increasingly aggressive. They were trying to intimidate me, to make me back down and pay the bill without a fight. But I refused to give in. I knew that I was in the right, and I was determined to see this through to the end. One day, as I was reviewing the records, I came across a discrepancy that made my heart skip a beat. The billing company had charged me for a procedure that I had never had. It was a simple mistake, but it was a clear indication of their negligence. I felt a surge of anger and frustration. How could they do this to me? How could they be so careless with my medical records? I called Sarah and told her about the discrepancy. She was furious, and she immediately began to draft a letter to the billing company. "We're going to take them to task for this," she said. "We're going to make them pay for their mistakes." I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that we were finally making progress. But as the days went by, the tension continued to build. The billing company was getting more and more aggressive, and their letters and phone calls were becoming increasingly threatening. They were trying to scare me, to make me back down and pay the bill without a fight. But I refused to give in. I knew that I was in the right, and I was determined to see this through to the end. One day, I received a letter from the billing company that made my heart skip a beat. They were threatening to take me to court, to sue me for the full amount of the bill. I felt a surge of fear and anxiety. I had never been to court before, and the thought of facing a judge in a courtroom full of strangers was terrifying. But I knew that I had to be brave. I had to stand up for myself and fight for my rights. I called Sarah and told her about the letter. She was calm and reassuring, but I could sense the tension in her voice. "Don't worry," she said. "We'll fight this all the way. We'll take them to court and we'll win." I felt a sense of determination, knowing that we were in this together. We were a team, and we would fight for justice no matter what it took. As the days turned into weeks, the tension continued to build. The billing company was getting more and more aggressive, and their letters and phone calls were becoming increasingly threatening. But I refused to give in. I knew that I was in the right, and I was determined to see this through to the end. I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that I had Sarah by my side. Together, we would take on the billing company and fight for justice. The outcome was far from certain, but one thing was clear: I would not back down. As the day of the court hearing approached, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. I was nervous, anxious, and scared, but I was also determined and ready to fight. Sarah and I had worked tirelessly to prepare for this moment, and I knew that we had a strong case. As I walked into the courtroom, I saw the billing company's lawyers sitting confidently at their table. They looked smug and self-assured, but I knew that they were in for a surprise. The judge called the court to order, and the proceedings began. The billing company's lawyers presented their case, trying to convince the judge that I was responsible for the full amount of the bill. But Sarah and I were ready for them. We presented our evidence, highlighting the discrepancies and errors in the billing company's records. We showed the judge the letter that I had received, threatening to take me to court. And we explained how the billing company had been harassing me with letters and phone calls, trying to intimidate me into paying the bill. The judge listened attentively, her expression growing more and more skeptical as the billing company's lawyers spoke. When it was our turn to present our case, she leaned forward, her eyes fixed intently on us. As Sarah and I finished our presentation, the judge nodded thoughtfully. She looked at the billing company's lawyers, her expression stern. "I have reviewed the evidence," she said. "And I am convinced that the billing company has made a serious mistake." The billing company's lawyers looked at each other in shock, their faces pale. The judge continued, her voice firm. "I hereby rule in favor of the plaintiff. The billing company is ordered to reduce the bill by 75% and to pay all court costs." I felt a surge of relief and joy, tears of happiness streaming down my face. I had done it. I had fought for my rights and I had won. As I left the courtroom, I felt a sense of vindication and satisfaction. I had stood up for myself and I had fought for justice. And I had won. The billing company's lawyers approached us, looking defeated and humiliated. "We apologize for our mistake," one of them said. "We will reduce the bill and pay all court costs as ordered." I smiled, feeling a sense of triumph. "It's too late for apologies," I said. "But I appreciate your willingness to make things right." As we walked out of the courthouse, Sarah turned to me and hugged me tightly. "We did it," she said. "We fought for justice and we won." I hugged her back, feeling a sense of gratitude and appreciation. "We make a great team," I said. We walked out of the courthouse, into the bright sunlight. I felt a sense of freedom and relief, knowing that the nightmare was finally over. I had fought for my rights and I had won. As we walked away from the courthouse, I turned back to look at the building. I smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction and vindication. I had stood up for myself and I had fought for justice. And I had won. I knew that I would never forget this experience, this fight for justice. I had learned that I was strong and capable, that I could stand up for myself and fight for my rights. And I had learned that with the help of a good lawyer and a strong support system, I could overcome even the most daunting challenges. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace and closure. I knew that I would always remember this moment, this feeling of triumph and vindication. I had fought for justice and I had won.